Hey there! Today we're going to look at this pen. This pen was lent to me by my main man Murray. It's quite interesting. It is a Montblanc. This is the Franz Kafka, and I'm trying to show off. If you look at the top of the cap here, you may actually be able to see that. It's actually a translucent red, very deep red. It looks like black from a distance, but it's really not, which is quite interesting. So I'm going to cover the parts of the pen. I'll tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then we'll do a writing sample. Let's get started. All right, here we have the Franz Kafka by Montblanc Writer's Edition. I can't show you the box because I don't have the box, but usually these are fairly fancy boxes and you will be able to find pictures of these online. Let's cover the parts of the pen, but before that, a little bit of background. So Franz Kafka is obviously a writer, hence, Writer's Edition, Kafka. Anyway, this pen is largely themed on the Metamorphosis that Kafka wrote, which is about a man who wakes up as a cockroach. And the Metamorphosis theme runs throughout the pen. So for example, you might be able to make out this end here is square. That's the end of the barrel. But then it turns into something round. Well, that's a metamorphosis, isn't it? So they have done that in a remarkably subtle way for Montblanc, I find. And the cockroach also shows up on the nib. I'll show you that in just a second. This was a 2004 Writer's Edition. 18,500 pens were made, 18 karat gold nib. This is a medium nib, like I said, cylinder to cube, which is kind of nice. The trim is 925 silver, so in other words sterling silver. You can see that it's tarnished a bit here and there, so that was my first clue that this might have been silver, and that's pretty much it. What I really like is, and the light here captures it pretty well, you can see it near the end of the cap, it's not a black pen, it's a translucent, very dark, I don't know, crimson or something, very, very deep red, which I like a lot. Okay, let's cover the parts of the pen. So the finial here, of course, has the snow-covered peak of Mont Blanc, aka the white star, but it's not a star. I like the shape of this finial overall, because as you can see, I hope you can see, there is a bit of depth to that. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the way this clip goes up and then down, but I mean, I wonder, and this is, I couldn't find that online, I wonder if this is meant to be a bit of the leg of a cockroach, what kind of goes up and then, anyway, that was just my impression. We have a little, silver clip, ski slope shaped, those I think usually work well, nice and springy, but not too loose or too tight. Silver, silver, and then at the end of the barrel, silver, still stickered, medium nib, useful because Montblanc doesn't label the nib grade, nobody knows why. Like I said, here you have that cubic shape at the end of the barrel, but then at the end of the cap everything is round, and about halfway through the barrel everything gets round. The pen unscrews, and then you get this nib. Now, it's probably difficult to make out the cockroach on the nib, but it is there, and I will make sure that on the website sbreround.com there is a close-up of the nib so you can see it better. We have the section, more silver. We have the Montblanc feed. Always be careful with those fins. They're usually, they bend out of shape pretty easily on Montblanc pens, I found. And then we have the section. So section tapers down, and here you have some threads. The section is not the biggest section in the world. I found it to be quite comfortable, and even though there are threads here, for me there is enough of the section that I actually don't feel them too much. I will say the step down is fairly sizable, so I feel that step down more than that I feel the threads. Then we get to the filling system. The filling system is quite interesting on this pen. When you unscrew the barrel, you see this. I first thought this looked like something to me that you would push. It's not that. It is, I'm sure Montblanc will call this a piston filler. I think it really is a captive converter. You twist this end, ink gets drawn up by a piston that moves up and down. And this always evokes the philosophical question, when does a piston stop being a piston and become a converter? But basically that's it. You do have a little ink window in there, which I think is nice. These slats cut out, that does make it easier to see how much ink you have left. And that is pretty much all there's to it. The Kafka. We should see next how the pen writes. And we can do that. But before I do that, I don't know why I forgot this, but I'll put this pen next to a Pilot Metropolitan. So a fairly large pen, right? It's fairly sizable without being obscenely oversized. Okay, what do we have? Montblanc, Kafka, and of course, I didn't point that out, but as with all the writer's editions of great characters, Kafka's signature is right there. Okay, this is a 18K medium nib. The ink is Waterman Blue. And the writing experience, I would say, is quite pleasant. As fine nibs go, I don't find this the broadest. Sorry, I said fine, that was Freudian. I want to say medium. As medium nibs go, I don't find this the widest medium. To me, this is more a fine, but there is no international standard for that. So if Montblanc says it's a medium, to them it's a medium. Pleasant writer. Well tuned. Even when writing this quickly, you see there's no real skips or anything. And the feed is not that it's saturated with ink or something. So I mean, that's really quite good. Nicely tuned, not too dry, not too wet. And I will say Montblanc, they do make nice nibs, typically. Very pleasant to write with. Okay, I'm being very careful with this, but a little bit of line variation is to be had. It's not a flex nib, it's not that calligraphy nib, so be very careful as you do that. What about reverse writing? Well, that takes this medium to, I wouldn't even call that extra fine, but extra fine. And if that really matters to you, you can get away with a couple words, but then I think it's going to run dry. So, there we have it. The Kafka. For some reason, I felt like I was being watched throughout this entire review. Let's talk about likes and dislikes. What do I like? What do I not like about the Franz Kafka? There are a couple of things I really like. To me, it's an attractive pen. And here's something that I really appreciate. I have reviewed quite a couple of writer's editions or great character pens. And I have often commented that there is a lot going on with those pens. There seems to be a lot of things tacked on, bolted on, different thing here and a lit there and a little bit there and a coordinate there and then a little flip switch there. It's a lot, I find. And that might be really fun if you're very interested in the character that is represented by that pen, but if you're not, for me it can be a bit much. What I really like about this pen is its simplicity. It's very, very simple. And yet there are subtle references to Kafka's work. The metamorphosis is what this pen is based on. I think the movement from square on one end to round on the other is a very subtle way to represent metamorphosis. The cockroach on the nib is cute. It's well done. And that simplicity, nice sterling silver trims, no things sticking out, nothing is rough to the touch, which sometimes happens with some of these Montblanc pens, that there is all kinds of ribs and things sticking out, and it's a bit too much. So I think this, to me, is one of the more successful Montblanc writer's editions that I have seen. And this is something that I would actually consider getting. Whereas 9 out of 10 times I look at the pens, I think this is really fun, but it's so much. I would never spend money on this. Whereas this one, I actually might. So I like that. I see them online for about $695 at least. That was the original price. It's possible they've gone up. But I saw one come by for about that price fairly recently from a pen shop. So that I find a pretty reasonable price. That would probably be the pre-owned market. I like it. think it's a nice pen. Things I don't like about it. This filling system is a little weird, right? It looks like a converter, but it's, I guess it's supposed to be a piston, but it really looks like a converter. I don't know. That feels a little. Montblanc is so well known for its piston fillers that I think that is not maybe the greatest. On the other hand, it does make for a very clean line in the barrel, right? There's no turning knob or anything, nothing broken up. So I think that it's certainly not a deal breaker for me, but it is something to bear in mind. Okay, that's pretty much all I have for the Kafka. I hope this was useful. Let me know what you think of the pen, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.